Hi, everybody. I'm Ben. I'm the host of The Hidden 20%. And we're going to try something a little new. It's an episode with just me rambling to my phone and the microphone to you. So this is pretty raw, unedited. You're going to get all the good and the interesting and unusual bits of my brain. But we're going to talk a bit about what's been going on in the world of neurodivergence, some of the news, some of our views, some of what's been happening with my drinks businesses. Just bits and bobs that have been going on. And we're going to hear from one of our listeners later on at the end. So, starting point, I literally just heard from Bella and Charlie, our team, that we have got not one, not two, but 3 nominations for the British Podcast Awards. We only launched in the middle of January. We are a charity. I've got absolutely no idea really what we're doing. And so to get nominations chosen by a panel of people that really do know what they're doing in the podcast world is amazing. We've been nominated for Best Interview Podcast, Best New Podcast, and the Rising Star Award for Bella, our producer. So what an amazing, literally just hot off the press, just heard just now. Incredible. So that's pretty exciting. What else is going on? We're building a laboratory behind me. So I'm sat here in this kind of incredible room that used to be like a car museum and a disco hall. It's literally got disco balls on the roof, and we're sat in the grounds of a monastery, a Benedictine monastery from the 1100s. That's literally just outside this window over here. So beautiful setting in the countryside, which is where I work, and where we're busy creating a whole new load of interesting concoctions and experiments with drinks, which is cool. And it's also where I get to chat to you about what's going on in the world of neurodivergence. So, a few things to chat about. We're going to talk about whether there's a cure for autism, controversial. We're going to talk about an online ADHD test that's been recommended guidance for use for 6 to 17-year-olds. We're going to talk about the latest backlog, literally as announced this morning. It's Thursday today, for the waiting times and the backlog for ADHD assessments in the UK. We're going to talk about SpongeBob SquarePants and Jessie J. We're going to talk about a recent study from Newcastle University into neurodivergence and distress at school for children. And then we're going to have a really special piece that I'm hopefully not going to mess up, which is a letter that one of our listeners has sent in that I'm going to read out. So let's start at the top. A cure for autism. This has caused some real shockwaves, I guess, through the community, and people have been pretty vocal about it. Lots of actually unhelpful headlines, like autism can be reversed. For example, in the Telegraph, the Mail have reported on it. This has traveled pretty far and wide. It's actually basically only based on 2 children who are twins. This was going on, over the last 2 years. And the scientists that have conducted this sort of investigation or this study have reported dramatic improvements in 2 non-identical twin girls' severity of their autism. And the interventions have included behavioral analysis, speech therapy, a gluten-free diet, supplements. I don't even really know where to start with this in terms of why we need a cure for autism, B, actually even whether there is even a possibility of being able to cure autism. I certainly don't want a cure for being autistic, thank you. I sort of worry that actually what's happened is this is a minute study done on two girls, where they've improved some of their symptoms. And I worry that ultimately they've grown up a little bit and just become better at masking their symptoms. They are still autistic. They have not been quote unquote cured. Autism has not been reversed. And yeah, one to read more about in the press. Second one, online test for ADHD 6 to 17-year-olds. So Sky News are reporting this. It's called the QB test. And it's only a guidance that the NHS could use this QB test that could aid NHS assessments, but alongside a clinical assessment. So this isn't a kind of silver bullet. This isn't how we're gonna clear the backlog of ADHD assessments, for example. But it's a computer-based assessment. It tracks the movement of patients and measures basically the three key symptoms of ADHD: inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. And then they compare the results to patients the same age who don't have ADHD. They can increase the number of young people that can be assessed, and whether that's for a diagnosis or whether it's ruling out. I think it's pretty early days on it, but it's guidance for the NHS, and as we're going to hear about in a second, there are lots of things that are needed to help clear this backlog and support the NHS. So yeah, want to check out QB test, that is called. Third piece, ADHD assessment delays in the UK. So we just heard this morning, BBC reporting that there are nearly 200,000 people on the waiting list for their ADHD assessments. And that would, by the current kind of rates, take 8 years to clear that backlog, which is unbelievable, sad, shocking. And I don't know, I have a few thoughts on it, just in the sense that we need to not blame the NHS. We need to not blame the government. I don't think there can be any good that comes from sort of blaming and finger pointing. I think it's amazing that this is being highlighted. I think it's the pathway to then something being done about it. And I think this is an amazing opportunity, hopefully for the neurodivergent community, to be involved in this and to think about some different solutions in different ways, because just fixing the NHS, I don't think is necessarily going to suddenly clear an 8-year backlog when there's loads of things going on within the NHS, loads of challenges that are not just about ADHD assessments and the backlog there, for example. Anyway, have a look at it, have a read about it. It's literally just dropped the news this morning on the BBC. Next, we've got SpongeBob. So SpongeBob SquarePants, the cartoon, basically let me get this right, the voice actor for SpongeBob SquarePants, Tom Kenny, has basically come out and said that SpongeBob is autistic, given that he loves routine, loves ritual, has high hyper interests, and yeah, I think that's amazing. I think we've got an autistic boy portraying an autistic Thomas the Tank Engine character. I think this representation is what's needed in the media, and certainly for young people to see what's going on. So yeah, good for SpongeBob, great news. Jessie J has also come out in the last week to reveal her diagnosis of ADHD and OCD. She said her diagnosis has made her rethink her entire life, but love herself even more, which I think is a pretty incredible, strong sentiment. There's been quite a lot of I've just noticed a bit of backlash to this word that keeps being backlash to, the word superpower. And I've got my own sort of thoughts on that. I don't believe that being neurodivergent is a superpower. I believe everybody's entitled to obviously feel what they feel. And if they think that their neurodivergence is a superpower, then amazing. That's great for them. I personally don't see my neurodivergence as a superpower. I think it gives me lots of great skills, assets, and advantages, but it also gives me challenges, issues, and disadvantages. So I don't think it's a very loaded word. I think it's a very extreme word, but I do think it's up to each individual, obviously, to share and discuss what and how they see their own brains. But I think we just need to be a bit careful on the flip side of a superpower, and not, if we're only talking about superpowers and skills and strengths and assets, then I think we're not sharing the truth, and we're not sharing the balance of you, that whatever your brain is like, whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent, people have strengths and they have challenges, and that is a fact and a universal truth. And so we must kind of, I guess, stick to sharing those truths. What's next? But good on Jessie J. And again, representation matters. And so the more people that are vocal, the more it's seen as, hey, look, it's not the worst thing in the world, and people aren't broken. And I think the more we see that in the media and in the mainstream, the better. Topic number 5. So this is, this study that Newcastle University have done about literally how distressed and stressful it is for neurodivergent children and their parents with the kind of current school system. One of the headlines that I saw Nancy Doyle actually talking about was, Newcastle University report on the odds that neurodivergent children are 46 times more likely to experience school distress and are at risk of significant trauma from punitive regimes where non-compliance is assumed to be defiance. So this is dealing with attendance targets, it's dealing with truancy and people wanting to go in school, not wanting to go in school, exclusion, suspension, and how ultimately the education system and the school system currently in the UK is very difficult for neurodivergent children. And so, this research that was done by Dr. Sinead Mullally, who's a bit of a legend, cognitive neuroscientist in this space, has found some really, in her words, harrowing stories. Schools should be these safe spaces. They should be encouraging children to learn. This sort of study proves that actually it's very, very difficult for neurodivergent children in the current state of the adjustments that may or may not be being made for children's education. As a father to 3 girls who are all obviously in school, the school system is definitely one that keeps cropping up as being an issue and a challenge, and an amazing opportunity actually to empower and allow children of all different diversities to thrive and flourish based on what they're good at and what they enjoy, rather than necessarily trying to have an education system built for the masses that churns out robots or good all-rounders. Just doesn't seem to be I've caught up yet in terms of the actual realities that we can't all be good at everything. So that's the news, lots of news, and that's only like within the last sort of week, 10 days. Lots in the press, which is amazing. And I think I'd encourage you to go and read up more on it, sign up for a Google alert on it. And obviously, hopefully we can keep bringing you some of that topical stuff every week with this. So the last bit is to read out this letter. And it was a letter sent in to us. It's going to be anonymous. But it was a letter sent in by a listener who'd listened to my episode with Sam, with my wife. And she kind of felt compelled to write this letter. It's a letter to her autistic husband. And as she says, and those still waiting for love. So I'm going to read it out. Dear husband, today I learned that 85% of marriages to an autistic person end in divorce. We have defied that statistic. We have defied it, 5, 6 times? I know you will know the exact number of times I've demanded a divorce. I do not say we've defied that statistic so far, because we have defied it, full stop. We are in our 30s, so hopefully have many more miles left to go. And I know we've defied it already. I'm not naive enough to say life couldn't possibly throw any more at us than it already has, but I know what we've overcome. And unless you're hiding multiple extra wives under the bed, and even then, I now know what we can continue to overcome. I don't love you because you're autistic, or despite you being autistic. I love you, and you are autistic. God, it makes me quite emotional. That was not necessarily the case for a long while. Let's start the beauty of the beginning. You landed in my life with this sparkling clarity. The first time I looked at you, I saw all of you. There were no airs or graces about you. You weren't trying to charm me or make me laugh, although you achieved both of those things. But in a world of bars and Thursday night drinks and friends of friends and drunken mishaps, the simplicity of you was like a deep sigh of ocean upon sand. I know you don't like similes and metaphors, so I'll try and find the appropriate verb instead. You were calming and felt safe, but deeper than that, I felt it in my gut. The day after we met, you joined me in a pub for some drinks with my neighbours, and you sat about 2 meters away from the group, looking away from everybody, and making it very clear you were going to have your one beer and then leave. I didn't think you were being rude, or at least not deliberately, and if I thought you were, I wouldn't have been the right person for you. You just very clearly didn't want to be there. It was simple, and that simplicity right there is the addictive paradox of loving someone with autism. I quickly discovered your mind was anything but simple. Your conversations are weird, remarked my flatmate. What a gem she was. And maybe they were, but I'd ask you a question, any question, and your answers were always thoughtful, fascinating, always completely unexpected. Such a remarkable way of seeing the world. How could I not fall in love with that? And then, I'll keep this next bit short because no one needs to hear our sob story, and we definitely don't need to keep rehashing it. And then when it comes to children, mental illness, and our savings being brutally stolen from us, your remarkable way of seeing the world was suddenly a huge blocker to how we communicated and navigated it all as a couple. My neurotypical way of seeing the world was a huge blocker for how I communicated to you two. This is not a one-way street. We needed to pull together, collaborate, work through these hard things, and we were speaking different languages. No, that's not right. We were speaking underwater. It just felt like it was your fault because everyone around me could hear me fine, but you hadn't been given the mechanism to hear me. On top of that, you were so unwell. I was so scared, and I was so lonely. What was I doing so wrong? How could I be so bad at this? Why couldn't I fix you? Why didn't the normal things work for you? We were lost. You were drowning, and I was struggling to prevent you from pulling me and the children under with you. Leaving was the most natural protective mechanism there was. As far as I'm aware, a common trait of autism is an ability to micro-focus and consume vast amounts of information in any one time. That trait in you saved us. You use your traits to optimize your ability to overcome and improve and listen and grow. And while I was left still reeling from the shock of everything that had happened, you were leaps and bounds ahead of me. And suddenly I was playing catch up. I was having to catch up on accountability and active listening, and all these things you were suddenly an expert in, and all these things that make for a good marriage. That's why we've defied the statistics. Full stop. I didn't know these things about marriage. I thought you basically yelled until someone stormed out, and then you never spoke about it again. I don't think you knew either at the beginning, coming from a more sweep it all under the rug school of thought. But as you lasered in and started learning about recovery, you learned all of these crucial relationship skills along the way. You did that beautiful thing that most neurotypical people are not able to do. You took the emotion out of it. You took the ego out of it, and you applied these things to yourself. Like a duck to water would be an understatement. Now, let's be clear here. While in hindsight, I can say it's like you took a magic pill and got better, the truth was that it took months and years of dedication, hard work, frustration, and I've had enough on my part. With 2 steps forward, 3 steps back on yours. But that is recovery. That is recovery from anything. And hopefully everyone reading this knows it too. Whether it be knee surgery, anorexia, PTSD, or whatever hell life has thrown at you. And you did it, like nothing I've ever seen before. And you did it for us, for me, the children, for you. There's no greater love than that. Now here comes the bit I've been avoiding writing about. Here comes your autism diagnosis. While we'd known it for years, while we'd circled around it and occasionally talked to doctors about it, while I'd encouraged you, coaxed you, told you it'd be such an important step for you to get this diagnosis, I did not expect to react to it the way I did. You got the diagnosis, and I said all the right things. I was encouraging and asked questions and listened. And all that time I was terrified, because suddenly here was the proof that this would never change. This would not go away. These parts of you would always be here, and I still struggled with a lot of them. I responded by having an affair. The biggest cheerleader of neurodiversity, championing neurodiversity here, there, and everywhere. I simply couldn't handle your diagnosis. The ex who'd sent me the odd message, the odd inquiry over the years, had turned into an unhealthy coping mechanism while you were unwell. And when you got your diagnosis and he, just at the right time, suggested we meet in a hotel, I did not say no. I told my therapist, because I was having therapy by now and blaming that all on you, that I knew I'd never actually go through with the affair. I just needed to think I would for a while. Funny how your subconscious knows these things before the rest of you does. So I didn't go. I called the whole thing off just before it actually happened. But everything leading up to it had happened. The messages, the preparations, the lying, the secrets. I had to tell you, not to absolve myself, but because our marriage was more important than sparing your feelings. Trust and respect would not thrive by me hiding a huge part of myself from you. Plus, I demanded complete honesty from you, so I would have been a hypocrite if I didn't offer the same back. And there you were again, that man I met, that pared back simplicity, a Samuel Beckett-style stripping back of language, the intense complexity behind the scenes, but the man who sat 2 meters away from everyone in a pub, making it very clear he didn't want to be there. That man whose response always took me by surprise. You were hurt. You were upset. I'd broken your trust, but you took the emotion out of it. You took the ego out of it, and you saw it for what it was. I put you through so much when I was unwell. I understand that this is your retaliation, you said. You made sure there'd be no further contact, ever. We worked through it together, and you quietly moved on. I would not have been able to do that. I don't know anyone who would be able to do that. You were remarkable. You are remarkable to me every day. I love you, all of you, and you are autistic. And actually, since I had my tantrum post your diagnosis, our marriage is remarkably easier. I had panicked that there was no way of fixing you, that I'd be stuck with the hard bits. But how selfish is that? This was never all about you. This was never about fixing you. This was about me learning to communicate with you and you learning how to communicate with me. This was about us working together, learning how to be a couple, learning how to be married. That's what every marriage is. I wanted a silver bullet to make life easier. Your autism diagnosis was never going to be that. Nothing ever was. It's simply another tool for us to use as we keep working hard on how to have the best marriage, the best life together that we possibly can. So we buy the books, we listen to the podcasts, we learn about ourselves, and we learn about other people too, both on and off the spectrum. We check in with each other and try to factor in as much laughter and playfulness along the way that we can. When we miscommunicate, we take a moment, then we try again, recognizing that the words we say don't always connect with each other in the way we thought they might. We keep trying. Just like how it would never be enough for a teacher at school to give you a fidget toy and announce autism solved, you will never be solved, and nor will I. We will never be solved because we are a marriage. We are a lifelong commitment to learning and growing together. To those of you still on your journey to finding love, keep looking. And don't stress about it not happening yet. There's someone out there who needs that safety and stability that you can offer, along with your uniqueness and the way you interpret the world. Remember, above all, you can offer something that not many other people can. You reduce the noise of everything else around you. And while I know that for many of you, that noise is a terrible irritant, it is an incredible gift to offer the one you love. When you find someone who values that, and all of you fight hard for them. And take it from me, there is nothing on earth like loving someone on the spectrum. It's an utter privilege. Wow. Big stuff. Thank you so much. You know who you are. Thank you. What an amazing letter. Nothing like a precedent. If you like, we do hear from you, and you write amazing things. The feedback is brilliant. Your stories of diagnosis, a love letter. Please do write to us. This space, this time is an opportunity for us to share some of that with our audience. And yeah, I know it will help. I know it will touch someone. I know it will make a difference. So yeah, drop us an email, hello@hidden20.org. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, visit our website, pigeons, snail mail, however you want. We'd love to hear from you. And thanks for listening.